Friends, I am very thankful to the Ramakrishna Vedanta Society for asking me to give these 3 public lectures. This is a beautiful hall. For the first time we are meeting in this hall, fine surroundings, and fortunately we have a bright day. 3 subjects you have heard just now announced, all important ones, and today's subject is important to all people: philosophy of work. Since there will be a question-answer session after the lecture and a brief interval, there will be plenty of occasions to raise questions, to amplify and to clarify what is said during the lecture. In fact, all these subjects need lot of questioning so that we can make the subject richer. In all these lectures, there is no atmosphere of a sermon, take it or leave it attitude. We are all trying to find out a philosophy that can help us to achieve life fulfillment. That means we have to put our heads together. Vedanta, the great philosophy of India, of nearly 4,000 years, and Sastry is deeply committed to discuss subjects with students, answer their questions and criticisms, and then evolve a beautiful philosophy of human life. That is the greatness of Vedanta among the philosophies of the world. It welcomes questioning. It encourages questioning, because truth is the aim, not just a creed or a finished dogma. When human beings begin to seek truth, when they give the mind a proper training for such a search, human life becomes rich, beautiful, and fulfilled. That is the great conviction of the great sages of the Upanishads, who created this remarkable philosophy several thousand years ago. They discussed this great subject of work, and this forms the theme of a whole book, namely the Bhagavad Gita. That is a remarkable book. It takes man from the center of work, imparts to him a philosophy by which he can utilize that work to achieve a double purpose: the welfare of society around him and his own spiritual growth and fulfillment. That philosophy is called yoga in the Gita. Remember, the word yoga is used in many senses, and most people in the West know yoga only as physical culture, physical exercise. But yoga in the Gita has nothing to do with physical exercise or other types of yogic practices known as breath control, etc. Here, yoga in the Gita means a philosophy of life and work by which human beings achieve spiritual fulfillment. How to manipulate that work situation by which human beings can achieve this blessing. That is a philosophy that is given in the 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, the Song Celestial. It is a wonderful book. When it was first discovered by Western thinkers, they were amazed, because the West knew only religion as something dogmatic, theology based on creed and dogma, without any place for questioning in it. But when they saw in the Gita a philosophy of life, not just a creed or a theology. That philosophy which you can question, and that philosophy which is centered in man at work, not man at prayer. Most religions deal with man at prayer. Religion comes to you when you sit for prayer. Take any religion. It is the emphasis is man at prayer. But in the Gita, man at work is the emphasis. Here is a stone cutter, there's a housewife, there's a doctor or a nurse or administrator. They are all working. Gita whispers to each one of them that this work situation has to be handled properly. That philosophy is what the world needs today. And the Gita contains it in simple language, in the form of a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. That's why the Western people, when they came in touch with it in the last century, first the translation by Sir Charles Wilkins, a Sanskrit scholar of the East India Company in Calcutta, published by the East India Company, and the whole project was initiated by the first British Governor General of India, Warren Hastings, about 1772-1783. Now that was the first translation that created a tremendous impact on readers in the West. Then a few decades later, the great British writer and poet, thinker, Sir Edwin Arnold, published his famous book, The Song Celestial, a free rendering of the Bhagavad Gita, with that wonderful title, The Song Celestial, celestial music, not ordinary music. Thereafter, many commentaries and translations have come in all parts of the world. That book is available everywhere. But we have to enter into that book. A profound philosophy is being communicated in the 700 verses of this great book. We have a beautiful idea in the Gita that there was a philosophy in the Upanishads several millennia before the Gita. Those Upanishads gave us one remarkable message, that man is essentially divine. Behind this body-mind complex is a profound divine spark in each one of us. This is a truth discovered by several sages. As a truth, they communicate this discovery to the world at large in their great immortal literature, the Upanishads. Man is essentially divine. As I said, it is not an opinion or a guesswork, it is a realization. The language used is, I have realized this divine immortal dimension in me, and I see it also in you. You try to realize it. That was the message of the Upanishads. So many people realize this truth thereafter, of which the most brilliant example is Buddha, who sat in meditation under that Bodhi tree about the 6th century BC, realized this great truth, got up from his meditation and said, I have realized the immortal, I am free, I am free. It was that great teacher who illumined the lives of millions of people throughout Asia in the coming decades. So that here is a profound truth conveyed in the Upanishads by a galaxy of great sages, highly intellectual, very pure in life. They could discover this profound truth and communicate it to the world outside. Esha sarveshu bhuteshu budho atma na prakashate drishyate tvadhyaya buddhya sukshmaya sukshmadarshibhi. This is a verse from the Kathopanishad, which will be the subject of study at the Levra Ganesha Ashrama retreat. A beautiful Upanishad, highly appreciated by Western people when they got this in translation. This infinite Atman, the divine, is in the heart of all, says the verse. But it is lying hidden. But it shall not lie hidden all the time. You can make it manifest. when your mind is more subtle, more pure, more concentrated, then this truth shines in the mind. That is the challenge given in that Upanishad. Like fire hidden in ashes, when you touch it, there is no fire, yet fire is there. So also the infinite Atman is hidden in every human being. What religions and theologies call God, which they locate somewhere in the heavens, Vedanta locates it in every human being. God is hidden within this experience itself as eternal self of man. This has to be realized. So say the sages in the Upanishads. And it can be realized here in this human life, not in a heaven. That's why this subject is expressed again and again, that nature has given man the organic capacity to seek for truth both in the external world, which is physical science, and in the inner world, which is the science of religion. We have that organic capacity. There is no conflict between science and religion. The fields are different, but the seeking is only for truth. Truth in the world outside, truth within man. It is in man that you discover the supreme truth. The world is a mystery, even after all the investigations of physical science. But when you clear this mystery, then that mystery becomes clear. We shall realize that that same infinite Atman is behind nature as well as behind man. The whole universe is filled with the Spirit of God, say the Upanishads. So here is a challenge thrown to every human being. Can you realize this truth before this body falls away within this short period? What a profound achievement it will be. Even discovering a North Pole or a South Pole or the Mount Everest or something of these considered to be a profound achievement. But discovery of the infinite behind the finite, the immortal behind the mortal, must be the profoundest discovery. That is the challenge the Upanishads summon every human being to take up in the context of his life itself. This was taken up by people who renounced life. They went to the forest, they went to the hills, they went to monasteries. Alone, they tried to experiment it. Then came the Gita. Why go here and there? You can realize this truth wherever you are. That is the greatness of the Bhagavad Gita. For the first time, a practical approach to the subject of spirituality you find in the Bhagavad Gita. A message to every human being the Gita conveys. Not for an ascetic or a mystic. They are a very small number of people. They are good people, great people. But they are only a small number. The millions of people, what was religion to them? Just a piety. And that too, increasingly a static piety. Once a week, go to the church or a temple, bow down half a dozen times, everything regulated like a military drill, and you see you have become religious. Finished. Nothing more is there. That was the way millions of people were served the subject of religion. Then came the Gita and said, no, what the sages achieve, you can also achieve. You have that organic capacity. I shall show you how to do it. There is a science, there is a technique by which this divine can be realized here and now, in this very body, not in a post-mortem heaven. That is the supreme orientation this subject of religion received from Bhagavan Sri Krishna about 1400 BC. The Gita is considered to be the product of 14th century BC in actual spiritual teaching. It must have taken longer time to put it into this particular literary form. But the teaching, the Gita or the Mahabharata, the battle, took place about 1400 BC. The other characteristic that shines through the Gita is that it is a message conveyed not in a cell of a monk, nor in the forest, but in the thick of a battlefield, where everything is action, everything is tension. In the very midst of it, you find a profound message emerging, a message of spirituality, message of strength, message of perfection here and now. That is also another profound characteristic of the Bhagavad Gita. So, in 18 chapters, 700 verses, what do you get? Many English writers call this book the longest philosophical poem in the world. Such a long poem, 700 verses, and the whole thing is philosophy. And yet, not academic philosophy, dry philosophy which you get in the universities, a philosophy that deals with life at close quarters, that gives you a meaning and significance to human life. That's the nature of philosophy you find in the Bhagavad Gita. At the end of every chapter, there is a descriptive statement about each chapter. What does this chapter contain? What is the philosophy contained in this chapter? There you will find the statement in Sanskrit. Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su. Thus, in this great Bhagavad Gita, Upanishad Su, it is as great as an Upanishad. Upanishads are the source of all these teachings. This also is like an Upanishad. Brahma Vidyayam, the supreme philosophy of God, or the science of God, is what is taught here. But not merely science, but also the technique of realizing the truth for yourself. Yoga Shastra. What a beautiful combination. Pure science plus applied science. Upanishads gave you pure science. Science of God, hidden in every human being. But how to achieve it? Gita says here is a technique. I shall convey to you. That's called Yoga Shastra. And the whole thing is communicated through a very charming dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. Two masterminds. One a hero of action, the other a hero of vision, contemplation, understanding and realization. That's the combination you get between Arjuna and Krishna. Arjuna was a man of action, a great hero in the Mahabharata battle, the third Pandava among the 5 Pandava brothers. That is Arjuna. Krishna and Arjuna were close friends, intimate friends. Krishna becomes a charioteer in that battle. In the midst of the battlefield, 2 armies are ready to fight. Just then, there is a pause before they began the battle. Arjuna gets a confusion. Is it worth doing all this work? Why not I go back and become a monk, live in the forest, forsaking all this? This is terrible. Work is terrible. Battle is still more terrible. So he becomes a little nervous. He breaks down. I don't want this battle. Let me go. So Krishna conveys to him this beautiful philosophy of life and work. Don't run away from battle. Don't run away from work. That's not the correct way. Face your challenges. Face your difficulties. Overcome them. That is real strength. Anyone can run away when there is a little difficulty. That's not proper for you. Meet the challenge of life with the challenge of philosophy. That's the way Krishna advises Arjuna. Meet the challenges of life with the challenge of an adequate philosophy. Adequacy means it must be rational, it must be intensely practical. That's the type of philosophy Krishna conveys to Arjuna through all these 18 chapters. And then, at the end of the 18th chapter, you find a beautiful idea. It was there, Krishna telling Arjuna, I have conveyed to you this great philosophy of yoga, with the help of which you will be able to conduct your life in your own way. So I now leave you to do what you think proper. I don't ask you to do this and that. I have given you the lamp of wisdom. Now find your own way. That's a beautiful sentiment in the 18th chapter. Yathechasi tatha guru. Do what you think best. I have given you the profoundest wisdom. Now think about it and do what you think best for yourself. There is not that coercion by the teacher on the student. Give him the light. Let him find his own way. That's a beautiful idea. In the several chapters, you find Krishna telling, I shall give you enlightened reason by which you will find your own way in life. I did not tell you do this and do that. Much of religion is a few do's and don'ts. That's what we don't like today. All humanity dislikes do's and don'ts. A number of catechisms. Thou shalt not do this, thou shalt do this. Most people dislike it. Except for babies, it has no meaning. Krishna never gives you do's and don'ts. He gives you reason. And then finally, gives you perfect freedom to accept or reject what he has told you. So in the 18th chapter, Krishna tells Arjuna, I have now communicated you the profoundest wisdom. Idate jnanamakhyāram. I have communicated you the profoundest wisdom. Guhyāt vishvataram maya. It is profounder than the profoundest. Sarvametat asheshena. He says, consider all these things. Divrishya. Yadhechasi tatha kudu. Do whatever you think proper. This is the beautiful advice Krishna gives towards the end. Then comes Arjuna's response. A beautiful idea. What does philosophy do to any human being? Arjuna gives the answer. Nashto moha smritil labdha tvat prasadat mayachyuta sthitosmi gata sandeha karishye vajanam tava. He says, I have heard your great exposition. I have listened to it. I have understood it thoroughly, considered it in my own mind. My mind has become steady. My delusion is gone. When our minds are deluded, we are not able to judge properly what action we should do in a particular situation. So the delusion must go. Philosophy is meant to give you clarity of mind. This delusion, to remove that delusion, is a function of philosophy. So Arjuna says there, Nashto moha, my delusion is gone. Smritil labdha, I have regained my memory. When you are in a deluded state, your memory doesn't function properly. You don't know what you are. You do all the mistakes at that time. But he says now, as a result of this philosophy, my memory is steady now. Then, Nashto moha smritil labdha tvat prasadat mayachyuta. Through your kindness, I have achieved this. Sthitosmi, and my mind is steady. Gata sandeha, my doubts are gone. Shall I do this? Shall I do that? As we say in Shakespearean language, to do or not to do, there is a question. That kind of doubting situation is no more there. I now see my path clearly. Finally he says, Karishye vachanam tava. I shall follow what you have asked me to do. Krishna gave him all permission to decide for himself. But he says, your decision is very perfect and I am going to follow your own exhortation to me. In this way, the book ends in the 18th chapter. From this, you will realize that it is a philosophy meant for all people in this situation of work, in this situation of life. We have all our challenges every day. What we need is a lamp that can help us to find our way. That lamp is a lamp of wisdom. That is what Krishna gives in the name of the Gita. And as I said in the beginning, the greatest emphasis is man at work. Most people are working for something or the other. Without work, there is nobody. In the 3rd chapter, which is called Karma Yoga chapter, Philosophy of Work chapter, Krishna says that not one person sits quiet even for a minute. Some work is going on all the time. So, since we are doing all the time work, how shall we utilize this work situation to educate myself, to improve myself, to enrich myself in a fundamental way? That's a very serious question. Today, for the first time, that question has assumed serious proportions. Today's challenge to us, after nearly 100 years of industrial revolution, is work has become drudgery to all people. Creative element in work is completely lost. We work just to earn money, to enjoy some pleasure and nothing else. It has no spiritual value. Today, all spiritual value has been drained out of work. Man has become reduced to a machine, and that mechanizing has gone on for 100 years, and we realize it today, how this modern philosophy of materialism has reduced human beings to a mere machine. What the difference between man and machine is a very important question for us today. Gita will tell you there is a profound difference between man and a machine. It is that difference that makes possible for developing a philosophy of work, so that philosophy will help you to achieve something which no machine ever achieves. What is the basic difference between man and a machine? Both do work, and machine does more work than any human being. Machines are more efficient. That's why in today's industry, we dispense with men and everything is done through machine. Automation means that. Why should you want human beings? Machines will do everything. So that this idea that machine does work, man does work, and there is nothing more about man is ruinous to the spirit in man. We don't realize that man is a spiritual dimension. But the first thing Gita will tell every human being, never forget when you are working that you have an inner life which no machine has. Machine has an external face. It has no inner face. That's a profound teaching. It's the truth about man. Taila Deshadan, famous paleontologist who died some years ago, in his book Phenomenon of Man, repeats this idea. In man, you find an inwardness which you found slowly developing in evolution from the living cell up to the human level. In the sun and moon and stars, there is not that inner life. There is not that inwardness. Everything is outward there. But when the living cell appears, nature reveals an inner dimension of herself in that tiny cell. It is that inner dimension that becomes much more expressed when evolution rises to the human level. In man, there is that inner dimension. That should not be forgotten. So that when you do work, take this fact into account. What is that work doing to me in my inner dimension? Most people do not consider this question at all. Today, particularly in the highly materialistic civilization, mechanized civilization, this idea of inner life is not understood by anybody. But that is the truth. That is why, because we neglect this inner life in the context of life and work, that inner life is all empty to most human beings in this modern age. And all the ailments of the body politic arise from that neglect of the inner life. All the psychic distortions come from there. Therefore, by this great neglect, we have distorted the human psyche. We have distorted the social situation today. We need a new philosophy which can correct this distortion, restore man to his own inner health and well-being, and make him richer and richer inward as he feels richer and richer outwardly in material wealth and pleasure. And so, this is the first truth Gita emphasizes in its philosophy of work, that every human being has an inwardness which no machine ever had. To purchase a machine, put it to work, it does a lot of work, and so work, it really enriches the world around us. Economic enrichment comes only through the activity of a machine. But the machine has no inner life. After 10 years or some years, you throw it away, put it in the scrap heap. That's what we do with a machine. It becomes junk, as we say. A machine becomes a junk when you use it up. But a man also becomes a junk. That's what we think today. Once your work is over, you become a junk. Soon as you retire, you become a junk. Absolutely no value system for you. Why? We never understood the inner life of man. We understood only the outer life, just like any machine. But this is the truth. Every time you work, you certainly disturb the ratio of energy systems in the external world. Whatever work you do, you have disturbed the world around you, either for good or for bad. But when you work, you also disturb the energy system within yourself. You have put a mark in your own inner system. Your mind has been imprinted by the work that you have done. It is this constant imprinting of the mind by the work that you do that constitutes your character, your personality, your being. Everything is done by that only. This is completely neglected in modern understanding of work. A machine never has an inner samskara developed through work. A Sanskrit technical term, samskara, means innate impression, an impression given to the mind. Every work leaves an impression on the mind. Every work leaves an impression on the world outside. In the machine, only impression is outside. In man, impression is outside as well as inside, whether you like it or not. Now, if you don't reckon with this inner impression, you will not be able to achieve life fulfillment, because it is this handling of the inner impression that will lead you to either joy, sorrow, success, failure, depression, all these evils which you find today coming one after the other, because we did not take account of this wonderful inner dimension of human life apart from the external dimension. The Gita begins with this beautiful idea that whenever you work, you are creating your own character. You must know how you do it. Can you do it in a masterly way so that you grow spiritually? You grow richer and richer within, greater peace, greater tranquility, greater love, greater compassion, a sense of richness, what I call in biological language, a qualitative enrichment comes to you. Until then it is only quantity, how much work you have done, how much protection you have done. That's what we ask always. That's a beautiful question. Machine does it better than me. But this qualitative enrichment comes only when I take this impact upon my inner life from every work that I do. Therefore the Gita says, take care how this work that you do is affecting your own mind. What impressions you are gathering in your mind, what samskaras, what tendencies are being created in your mind. Because ultimately it is this what we call bundle of tendencies in you that will constitute your personality, your psychic bent, your way of dealing with the world later on. Everything depends upon this. So how to handle this is a big subject, and that's what Krishna advises all humanity to study and discover for oneself. The Gita helps us how to do so that through work we can achieve an inner development, inner fulfillment, which we generally achieve only in the external world by our work. We enrich society by our work. I am a good farmer. I cultivate my fields. I produce bumper harvest. I increase the economic strength of the community in which I live. That's a beautiful contribution that we make, and it is worth doing it. But while doing so, it only advises us, see that what kind of impression the work is making on you. If that impression is good, you will be fine. If that impression is bad, you will be bad. You have to find this action on you of the work that you do by close scrutiny. This yoga of the Gita helps us to undertake this scrutiny, and finally a conditioning of the mind deliberately by our own reason. It is why Gita uses the word reason to guide us in the time of action. Let your action be guided by buddhi or reason, says Krishna in the second chapter of the Gita. Buddhi must guide our action. Buddhi is enlightened reason. In fact, the yoga that is taught in the second chapter is buddhi yoga, yoga of reason, yoga of understanding. That's buddhi yoga. And buddhi yoga is highly praised in the Gita. Let your reason operate on the work that you do, so that the inner dimension will also be taken into account along with the outer dimension. After saying this, Gita gives a definition of yoga as taught in the Gita. It is a famous definition given by Krishna. Nowhere you will find this kind of definition. What is yoga? You will see when you study Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, you will find one type of definition. Yoga is stopping the vibrations or modifications of the mind through concentration. That is the definition given there. Here's a different definition given here. Yoga is one. Samatvam yoga uchyate. Equanimity is yoga. One definition given here. But the most important definition given in the second chapter is yoga karmasu kaushalam. Yoga is dexterity, efficiency in the field of action. Can you do your action effectively, efficiently? That's a beautiful idea. But when you hear the statement, yoga is efficiency in action, you may ask, what has Gita to say something new to us? Today's technological civilization is based on efficiency. The most efficient action we are able to achieve today. That's why such a big industrial development, wealth, everything has come to us only through efficiency. So efficiency is not a new idea for modern man, because modern man is brought up on the very concept and technique of efficiency. Then what more new thing has Gita to say? Yes, Gita has to give you a profound dimension of efficiency which modern man has not understood. That is what Gita is going to say. For efficiency has a double component, says the Gita. We understand only one component, how much protection you have done. What does the state tells you when you are employed? What protection have you done? Protective efficiency, the state wants to achieve through you. Industry, agriculture, professions, everywhere. How much protection you have done. Productivity is the yard by which we measure. But only one type of productivity, economic productivity or external productivity. That's all what we know. Gita welcomes it. That's a beautiful idea, but it is insufficient so far as man is concerned. For a machine, that is enough. External productivity is the highest that a machine has to care for. But so far as man is concerned, the concept of efficiency must have a double dimension, not merely an external productivity dimension. What is that dimension? That is a gentle murmur, a whisper from Krishna. Are you feeling richer within yourself as a result of protective efficiency outside? You have produced so many goods and services for the community. That's beautiful. But are you feeling richer thereby? Stronger thereby? Or are you feeling like an empty individual, day by day getting empty here? Though enriching society, I feel empty within. That is a very inefficient type of work. Real efficiency in work comes only when you feel inwardly richer, purer, nobler, more fulfilled, along with every step that you take to enrich the outside world through your efficient labor. So let your efficiency be a double-edged efficiency, external productivity efficiency, internal spiritual efficiency. If you combine these two, you have the message of the Gita, the yoga of the Gita. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. Yoga is efficiency in action. When you don't take this second factor into account, by the time we finish our working life, we become frustrated, bored. These are the words you find often used today. Everybody getting frustrated, bored, alienated. So many new words are coming all the time, only because we have seen efficiency only in one dimension. And we are angry with that efficiency today. That's why young people don't want to work today. Even when the hippie movement started, they were all against work. We don't want work. We want to lounge about. We're not interested in work. Why should I enrich this society outside? We don't want it. Because of this wrong understanding of the concept of efficiency, pendulum swings from hard work to laziness. There is nothing middle at all. Either do hard work or become lazy. The Gita gives us insight into the complete dimension of efficiency. So where the man is concerned, efficiency must involve not only productive economic efficiency outside, but inward spiritual efficiency as well. So that day by day, I feel richer, stronger, purer. And the day comes when I give up work, when I retire, I don't feel alienated. I don't feel frustrated. I have achieved something rich here. I can continue on that dimension. Because the inner is emptiness, whenever we are out of work, we become absolutely empty. We become like a machine thrown on the scrap heap. That is the situation in the life of most people. That should not be. It's a tragedy. Why should man enact this tragedy when there is such a profound philosophy available to him every time? This is the language you find throughout the chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. You have seen people working very loyally to an organization or the state. After some time, something goes wrong in that relationship, and then comes absolute frustration because he has seen only one side of life, never stress the other side. We have got in your British history the story of that famous Prime Minister or Foreign Minister of Henry VIII, Wolsey, who served Henry VIII with great distinction, with great dedication. Ultimately, the king rejected him. He was completely dishonored. Then he made a famous remark. It is studied in English history books. Wolsey's statement, Thomas Wolsey. If I had served God with as much devotion as I have served my king and country, he would not have deserted me in his old age. That's the famous tragic statement of Thomas Wolsey. You serve the state, and the state may as well reject you. At the end of it, throw you down like a scrap heap. Then you become frustrated, depressed as it were, because we put all the eggs only in one basket, that external basket. We didn't care to do anything within. Now this kind of attitude and this kind of regrets we find in millions of people in the modern period. Why? If the state is my enemy, why should I become my enemy? I am hurting myself all the time by neglecting my dimension of work from within, how to enrich myself from within, so that there is a joy in life to be used for a purpose which is mighty. Let me not become, I am quoting famous words of Bernard Shaw, who said, let not men become a clod of ailments and grievances, ever complaining that the world doesn't devote itself to making you happy. A clod of ailments and grievances. Millions of people today are clods of ailments and grievances, complaining, this has not done to me, state has not done this to me, people have not done this to me. I am my own enemy in this way. The state is not concerned with you. State knows only as a protective individual, it wants you. When you are finished, state has no interest in you. We forget the limitations of a political state. They are not concerned with the individual except when you are protective. When you cease to be protective, state has no interest in you. This is called the natural view of man. Spiritual view is something higher. Take nature. How does nature view a species? Say for example a fish, or a bird, or an insect, or even human being. Our Darwin will say, all the biologists will say, nature's interest in an individual is only so long as it serves nature's purpose. What is that purpose? Reproduction. As soon as reproductive period is over, nature has no interest in an organism. This is a wonderful idea in biology. Pure truth, very grim truth, but that's the truth about nature. Nature is not interested in any being which doesn't reproduce, because nature's evolution must go on. These are only instruments for that purpose. Once that is over, nature has no more interest. You are thrown on the scrap heap by nature. But is that all your dimension? No. There is a higher dimension in you. Let us not simply say we are only nature's outpost. There is a higher nature pulsing in me. This is entirely neglected in modern civilization. Entirely. There is no qualification. I am also a part of nature. So nature has finished me. I also become finished. I become high and dry, thrown on the sands. The current flows on, leaving me on the sands. That's man's situation today, by following only physical nature, the external nature, by neglecting his own higher spiritual nature. Gita says, never do so. There is a profound dimension within you. Take charge of that. Nature may not be interested in that. You must be interested in it. Therefore, every work situation so handled that along with producing wealth for the community, you enrich yourself in a fundamental way, so that year after year, you become richer, spiritually, qualitatively. When you give up all work later on, you don't feel that kind of boredom, that frustration. You have so much to achieve still. You have found a new dimension of human development. Continue in that line. In this way, Gita gives us a philosophy of work which emphasizes efficiency, but efficiency at a double dimension. External, productive dimension, inward, personality dimension. Both must be rich by your work. If second is accepted, that work becomes yoga. Karma means work. Any work is karma. A machine works, that's also karma. But karma yoga it becomes. The word yoga can be added to karma only when you add this inward efficiency to that outward efficiency. Then work becomes yoga, a path to spiritual development, a path to spiritual fulfillment. So that ordinary karma becomes karma yoga when you move in the spiritual dimension to stress on inwardness of all work. That is what Krishna expounds in the second and third chapter primarily. Later on in many other chapters as well. He says, not a single instant we are keeping quiet. Even breathing is action. Everything that we do is action. How many occasions are there to bend all these actions to spiritual development? That we are not doing. What's the nature of that spiritual development? That forms the theme of the second chapter. Original philosophy by Krishna, called Karma Yoga, Buddhi Yoga, Yoga of Buddhi, Yoga of Action. That's what you find in the second chapter in a series of verses where one beautiful stress is given. If you want to grow spiritually, you have to go beyond this tiny ego, the ego presiding over the organic system. So that is why the teaching is detachment. Detach yourself from that ego. That's not your true form. The ego is something limited. It's a new arrival in evolution. It's a wonderful new arrival in evolution. The sun has no ego. The insects and birds and mammals have no ego. Only man has this ego. Ego appears at the stage of man, the self, the concept of self. So that ego that is just appearing in me, that's not my final state. It is only the beginning of great things in me. So that ego presiding over the organic system, always seeking organic satisfactions, that ego must be transcended. Then only you rise in the spiritual level of life. Therefore, the teaching is detachment, non-attachment to the ego. You are not the ego. Ego is only, I am quoting a famous sentence from a great book on biology. In fact, we can quote modern scientific books to deal with some of these subjects which are central to Vedanta in the Upanishads and the Gita. Fortunately, many of these biological books also give us indications of the truth of what Vedanta had said ages ago. So he says there, I am quoting from The Science of Life by H.G. Wells, G.P. Wells and Julian Huxley, published somewhere in the 1920s. Whole bulky book giving the development of modern biology and towards the end giving the philosophical implications of modern biology, where they treat in one section status of the ego in evolution. That passage which I am quoting just now is a moving passage, poetic. He says there, alone and in the silence of the night and on a score of thoughtful occasions, we have demanded, can this ego, this self, so central to my universe, so greedily possessive of the world, ever cease to be? Certainly, without this ego, the whole life has no meaning at all. And yet, every night, when we go to sleep, the ego dies away, and we do not know by what stages it creeps to an awareness of its own existence. And later, the authors continue, personality centered in the ego may be one of nature's devices, see the language, may be one of nature's devices, a convenient, provisional delusion of considerable strategic value in evolution. Ego is a strategic value in evolution. It is a provisional delusion. You have to overcome it. What a beautiful concept. This little ego appearing in us, presiding over the organic system, centering the whole universe on itself. That's why we develop exploitative attitude. We want to destroy others, to fatten oneself. Everything we want here. That's what the ego says. This ego must be transcended. That's the teaching of detachment. What that book said as transcendence is what we do. By detaching oneself from the ego, we are not, this ego is not my true self. There is something higher. This ego is centered only in this organic system. It excludes all the egos in society. Other egos are meant for my exploitation. That's the attitude at the level of the ego. When you just go beyond it, your attitude changes. You grow spiritually. You develop compassion. You develop love. You make your work an instrument of service for the good of all. The whole change will come. Set of values will change completely when you change the center of gravity, the ego, to something deeper in yourself. This is a beautiful idea. Krishna stresses it. Be detached and yet do action all the time. Detached from the ego. Assert your own higher self, that self which is one with all. That's called the spiritual growth of man. From the limited ego, the unlimited self, expansive self. That's what you develop through the spirit of detachment. Then he says, When you do that detachment from the ego, you develop clarity of vision. Your buddhi becomes clear. Nothing can dilute it thereafter. You are able to see clearly your way in this world. So he said, make buddhi, or this enlightened reason, your guide in life. That's a wonderful verse there. Duvirena hyabaram karma, buddhi yoga dhananjaya, buddhau sharamanvicha, kripana padahetavaha. Far inferior is work done in a spirit of attachment and for self-aggrandizement to that work done under the guidance of enlightened reason or buddhi. Petty-minded are those who work for small results for themselves. They have not realized their own infinite dimension. Man must realize his own infinite dimension. He is not a tiny creature centered in the organic system. So that in a series of verses, in this second chapter, Krishna expounds this buddhi yoga. Take buddhi as the guide of your life, this clear enlightened reason. But this reason cannot be enlightened until you detach yourself from the ego. So long as buddhi is tied to your ego, you are all blind. Just like a horse with a blinder on both sides, that would be human understanding. It is this freedom of the human understanding that comes by changing the center of gravity from the ego to something deeper within yourself. I was interested to read from microbiologist late J.B.S. Haldane in his book Possible Worlds, published years ago, this beautiful statement. He says, when I think logically and scientifically and act morally, I find that my actions and judgments are not something particularly of myself, but of any person in the same situation. You feel a certain universality coming to you when you think impartially, when you are detached in thinking, when you judge also in an impartial way, act in a moral way. You are not acting from the ego point of view. Whenever you are acting morally, that man's interest is taken into account in mind. That means I have transcended the ego in doing so. Saying this is the great idea of human transcendence. You must achieve the transcendence. Within this system, there are higher dimensions waiting to be expressed, especially the infinite Atman, ever free, ever pure, ever illumined. That's my true nature. That must find expression in the course of life and action. Therefore, the first step is detachment from the ego, so that manifestation of something larger within oneself. Detachment is a negative term, but here is a detachment, negation, along with an affirmation of something larger, something purer, something nobler in the human being. A moral man, ethical man has achieved a transcendence which an average man doesn't achieve. It was the English poet Wordsworth who wrote in his poem, unless men erect themselves above themselves, how poor a thing is man. It's a beautiful expression. Erect yourself above yourself. Above yourself means above this given ego that is there, presiding over the organic system, only seeking one's own organic satisfaction. The capacity to love and serve others doesn't come to us until we find detachment from this ego. So in these verses, this beautiful idea is expressed in this second chapter. Therefore, two levels of work are possible, says Krishna in the third chapter. What is that? One, we are attached to results. We want to fatten ourselves. We don't consider anybody else in our thinking. And such a person is a very low type of mind. He has no development at all. Largely at the creature level, he cannot achieve freedom. That's a higher value. But satta karma nyaridvamso yatha chanti bharata tatha vidvan tatha kuryat chikirshul loka sangraham. When you are enlightened, your work will bear one look. When you are unenlightened, your work will bear another look. That is the distinction given in the slogan. Enlightened worker, unenlightened worker. Anybody can choose to achieve this or that. When you are deeply attached to your own ego and its own satisfactions, you convert the whole world of work for one's own self-aggrandizement. That is called a blind attitude. unenlightened attitude. Sakta karmanya vidvamso. Avidvamsa means unenlightened people, deeply attached to work. They work very hard. They work plenty. But all motivation is how to fatten myself. No place for anybody else in thinking. That's called the raw individual. But similarly, the enlightened man also will work very hard. But he always thinks of others when he works, not only oneself. His work becomes service, not self-aggrandizement. How to convert work into service is the great problem in the philosophy of work. And when you so convert, that service becomes spiritually benefiting. You are rising higher and higher in your own development. You are no more that tiny organic system and the ego presiding over that system. This is how Gita explains how work changes when you change your center of gravity from ego to something deeper in you. Here is the spiritual growth of man. It is a fact that man grows spiritually. As we say in today's language, you can raise your consciousness level from one to the other, from a lower to a higher level. That is what we have to achieve ourselves. Then the same work will achieve a new dimension. It becomes a positive work for the good of all, a positive work for one's own spiritual growth and development. That is karma yoga. In this very life, through this karma, through this action, I grow spiritually. Even though I have not left my kitchen or housework or labor, farming, I am still in all of them. But inwardly, I am growing. Externally limited, inwardly unlimited growth man achieves through this kind of philosophy. Therefore, by the time body grows old and it is to be discarded, a sense of spiritual growth and satisfaction. Yes, I have achieved life's purpose. I am not a creature. I am free. I am free. That experience must come to man. That this karma yoga will land a human being on that shore of freedom, on that shore of sense of joy. Yes, I have lived my life for a purpose, for a high purpose. That kind of satisfaction will come to a human being when he or she follows the direction of this profound philosophy and technique of karma yoga as taught in the Bhagavad Gita. The whole of the third chapter is karma yoga chapter. So many beautiful ideas are given to us in that chapter. The most important idea, convert work into service. That's a beautiful idea. It is through service that we transform the ego from a raw, unripe ego to a ripe self. That self-development comes through this conversion of work into the spirit of service. You soften the ego by that particular attitude. That is why two methods are suggested by Krishna for developing this spirituality within us in the context of work. One is doing all work in a spirit of service and dedication. Second is inward meditation. These two must interact with each other, and thus slowly man grows spiritually in the context of life and work itself. We did not forsake work. Work becomes a school, a training school for human development spiritually, as it has always been a school for enriching society outside. But man should not become mere instrument of society. Just like a cow gives us milk. So long as it gives us milk, we try to feed it, we look after it. But once it ceases to give milk, we kill it and make it into beef. We are not concerned with that cow itself. Human beings also are treated like this by a society which considers man as only a machine. But the spiritual attitude of this philosophy looks on man as a spiritual principle, also seeking its own fulfillment, along with fulfillment outside. This philosophy reckons with that inward hunger of man to be recognized as a human being, as an entity in its own right, not as a cog in a machine of society. All totalitarian systems treat man as a cog in the machine. In fact, today, though we call ourselves democracies, but the philosophy by which states live is entirely totalitarian. Their concept of man is purely as a machine for the good of society and not for itself. This is to be avoided. Man must realize there is an integral value given to every human being. We can't treat a human being merely as a machine. It has got a sense of fulfillment within. All the tragedies of hopes and fears and success and failure, all are there within the human system. We must take all these factors into account and evolve a philosophy of action by which action produces enrichment within the individual, a sense of fulfillment within the individual. Then only karma becomes karma yoga. And there the philosophy of work gives us this profound message. Work, but with this higher motivation, that my work must bring cheer and blessing to all. When I think so, when I do so, I grow spiritually. I do not remain a tiny, creaturely individual thereby. I become free. That is a sense of freedom that karma brings when it is yoked to the spirit of yoga. That is the beautiful idea that you get in this exposition of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Herbert Spencer was a great British sociologist towards the end of the last century, first part of this century. His Principles of Sociology and other books are very famous. In this book, he says, what we need is a combination of philanthropic efficiency and philosophical calmness. That's a wonderful combination. Philanthropic efficiency and philosophic calmness. Mind is calm, absolutely undisturbed, yet you are very active for the good of all. That's called philanthropic efficiency and yet calmness. So in Karma Yoga, there is a second dimension which is very, very important from the modern point of view, inward calmness. How to work with a calm mind. We don't understand that truth much. Generally, people consider very active people. Those are the people who are full of fuss in work, making noise, making fuss. But a silent, calm work is real efficiency in work. When a machine is efficient, it doesn't make noise. It doesn't go on what you call shaking all the time. If it's inefficient, it makes noise and shakes. Similarly, in the human being, when the mind is truly efficient, it does very heavy work, but everything in calm and silent in that way. This is what is expounded in the 4th chapter, in a famous verse. When you work hard, see that inner man is perfectly calm. That second definition which I quoted in the 2nd chapter, Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. Mind is calm, tranquil. Though heavy what is being done. What a beautiful conception. So much work and yet no noise, no fuss, calm and quiet. That is achieved by increasing spiritual strength from within. If I carry a burden which is too heavy for me, I feel crushed by that burden. My face is all contorted when I carry that burden. There is no art in carrying that burden. But if you have enough strength, you carry that burden with a smile, with a beautiful face. That shows there is enough strength in you. That strength is spiritual strength. So that heavy work and yet a gentle smile, a kind word, no fuss, that comes from deep spiritual strength within the individual. Krishna says, do plenty of work, but do it with calmness, with tranquility, no fuss. What a beautiful conception of work. Morning till evening you are working, but you are always calm and quiet. A tremendous spiritual energy must be there to keep that mind calm in the midst of such difficult circumstances. This whole concept is given to us in one single verse in the 4th chapter. Very enigmatic, paradoxical verse when you read it just in translation without any exposition. The verse is this: Karmanya dharmaya pasyed adharmanita dharmaya sabuddhiman manusheshu sayukta krishna dharmakrit. He who sees inaction in action, action in inaction, he is a true yogi. He is the wisest of men. He is really real worker. How to see inaction in action? How to see action in inaction? Very difficult situation. But that is a great message. Our American thinker Emerson, when he studied the Gita, he was fascinated by its philosophy. He got a copy from Carlyle when he visited London. Since he got that book, all his writings changed. The Gita began to appear again and again in his essays. His poem on Brahma is famous. Now on this sloka, this verse, he has given a beautiful commentary. I am quoting his verse from this S series. He said, "It is easy to be oneself in solitude. It is easy to be lost in the crowd when you are in the crowd. But the ideal man is he who puts his hands in the midst of the crowd but keeps his head high in solitude." If we can combine these two, that is beautiful. So much of work, so much of society, but inwardly a tremendous calmness is there. This is an absolute possibility for man, provided he knows how to train himself, how to train herself. That training is called yoga, the science and technique of inner training and development, by which, even though you do heavy work, you feel calm, you feel joy, you feel a sense of cheerfulness all through. What a beautiful conception of human perfection, human development. It is that philosophy that Gita is spelling out chapter after chapter, enriching it from new ideas, just like the Ganges flowing from the Himalayas like a tiny stream. New tributaries come and join, goes on becoming bigger and bigger until it becomes a mighty river of joy and fertility down in the plains of India. So also this great Gita, second chapter, beautiful ideas are given. Third chapter, new tributaries come in. Fourth, fifth, sixth, it goes on until you come to the 18th, become a mighty river. That is the philosophy of yoga, developed by this mastermind, Krishna, more than 3,400 years ago, which is available to all people today, especially today, when life has become full of stress and strain, plenty of work to do, plenty of anxiety. Krishna will whisper, take away anxiety from work, do work, but remove that anxiety portion. Generally, people give up work along with anxiety. If I want to avoid anxiety, the best thing is to avoid work. Let me go out from work. Let me retire. Let me go to the forest. But that is not possible for most people. You have to work. So what shall I do? Remove the anxiety portion. And today's medical men tell us that work doesn't tire you, but anxiety tires you. 8 hours of work and half an hour of anxiety. That 8 hours will not tire you, but this half an hour will tire you. How to remove anxiety from work? How to develop that calmness when you work? That is the philosophy of action. That is the great teaching of Sri Krishna in the Gita. By trying to manifest one's divine dimension, by trying to bring out the spiritual energy resources hidden within ourselves, we are able to carry heavier burdens with a lighter mind. Don't reduce the burden, but increase the energy. As I often say, if so much of goods to be carried by the goods train, and the engine is not able to carry it, add one more engine. Don't reduce the bogies, but increase one engine. Similarly here, challenges are many. I am not able to face with my present energy. Bring out more energy from within. Is there such energy? Yes. Vedanta is absolutely clear on the subject. Enormous energies are hidden in all of us. Only we have to bring it out. That is the science and technique of yoga. So karma yoga makes a person works hard, works efficiently, and in so working, he or she brings out the latent spiritual energies hidden in every one of us, so that the whole of work is done with a calmness, with a smile, with a cheer, which is something extraordinary. That is the biggest miracle we can perform in human life. That is a real miracle. Petty miracles are no use in religion, but here is miracle of character, miracle of personality efficiency. What a beautiful concept of a miracle. This is what the Gita wants to achieve in every human being. A housewife, as I said, housewife. Yes, beautiful. That life can become a tremendous life of joy if you know the philosophy of work. If I don't know philosophy of work, I can make myself bored with the work that is there all the time. So also every other department of work. In this 20th century, we need really a philosophy of work. Work is there, but there is no philosophy to guide us. Without philosophy, everything is wobbly. Just like without a steering wheel, the car wobbles all the time. You don't know how to take it straight. So philosophy helps you to go steady, to go march steadily. That's the meaning of philosophy. Without guidance of philosophy, life can become simply a series of events without a connection between each other. That should not be. That is why the word philosophy of work. I did not teach people work because everybody works. What all is to be taught? How to work. So that this work must produce a tremendous result in me. I must feel richer by the work that I do. I certainly make the world richer. But why should I make myself poor? And today's human situation is plenty of rich outside, plenty of riches outside, much of emptiness within. This tragedy must be eliminated by only a new philosophy which the Gita gives us. As I said in the beginning, meet the challenges of this 20th century with the challenge of an adequate philosophy. That is the philosophy of work and life given by Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. There are so many aspects of this great subject. We shall have occasion to touch some of them when we later on meet here for question answer session after a few minutes of interval. Thank you all. You can ask any questions, really.
You have only the right to work, but not to the fruits thereof. Could you explain a little bit more about that?
Yes. That is the key verse in the second chapter, where he introduces this great subject of Karma Yoga. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala hetubhohu ma te sangos tvakarmani. To work, you have the right, not the fruits thereof. Let not the fruits of work be your motivation for work, nor should you be addicted to no work or inaction. You must act, but without attachment. That's the language used in this and several other verses in the Gita. The truth behind this is, when you are attached to work and work for the fruits to be accruing to you, you are fattening your own ego. We want to reduce this ego. So work becomes service. We begin to care for others also. Then we reduce this ego. Try to manifest a higher dimension that is within. That is the only way to grow spiritually. I all the time. Then this little life becomes fatter and fatter. That is worldliness. The spiritual growth begins when we knock away this little I and allow the higher I to manifest in ourselves. That is the real process of work as a means of spiritual development. And there is no other way. Yes?
We have bureaucracy, and it's very difficult for a person themselves to control the work and the way that they do the work. As in the East, the person who makes bread themselves where they are. In the West, if we make bread, we have the supervisor who tells us what to put in it.
We don't change the work, we change our attitude to work. That you can always do. The work we cannot change, but our attitude is in our control. You can't get a work exactly what you seek. Sometimes you have to fit to the work. But the main thing is attitude to the work that you do. That is in our control. Attitude control is a big philosophy since the Second World War. One, Viktor Frankl, a scientist, a Jew who was very much persecuted by the Nazis along with millions of other Jews, they all perished. He didn't perish. He came out unscathed because he developed a philosophy. That he wrote in a book, The Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. There, the emphasis is on attitude control. By controlling the attitude, you can stand much more the stress and strain of life than otherwise. And he gives some examples there. Very interesting example. They investigated the American military hospitals in Italy during the war. In one ward, severely wounded soldiers. Another ward, mildly wounded soldiers. By investigation they found the people who were severely wounded were more calm, more tranquil than those who were less wounded. How can this happen? One man's leg is gone, hand is gone, they are more peaceful. The other man has slight bruises here and there, they were not so peaceful. Then investigation revealed The first group, severely wounded people, they were calm because for them the war is over. Soon as they are discharged from the hospital, they will go to their wife and children and be happy there. These fellows will be sent back to the front once again. So the very thought gave them so much of peacelessness. That's a wonderful conclusion he arrives at there. So calls it attitude control. It is in our own power to do so. Yeah.
Could you please explain how, when one has been attached to the work and the fruits thereof for so long, one can quickly make an about face? How can one change one's attitude to work?
It can be too slowly, not necessarily quick, right about turn. Slowly, slowly. Many things will be attached in the beginning, but a few non-attached attitudes will come. Then strengthen it slowly. It's an educational process. Class by class you go up until you go to postgraduate study. So also in spiritual life, take your own pace. Go step, having clearly seen the road. Now go in that line as much as you can. Somebody may do more than you. That doesn't matter. Say, God, speak to him. I will also come with you later on. This is the attitude in spiritual life where it's the science of human growth. Everybody has its own pace of growth. But the growth must be emphasized. Then implement as much as you can according to your strength. There is no immediate achievement quickly, any of these things. It is a slow growth. Just like the baby grows slowly. Not quickly. It just grows slowly. So also spiritual growth. Detachment helps you to grow spiritually. Otherwise the old man will continue. Whereas in our Christian mystical thought, we say the old man must die. That's the language in mystical language. That's the ego. He has to die. Some new man will come out of that death. It's a slow process. Converting work into a spirit of service. Immediately you manifest your higher dimension. Then inward meditation. This will help to strengthen this particular development. Krishna therefore gives you this advice in the later chapters. Yudhyasva vigata jvaraha. Fight the battle of life without tension within, is the language. Continue the battle, but no tension within. Jvara means fever, means tension. Don't have fever within. Anxiety, stress, these things should not be there in work. That's called the spiritual strength, by which you remove tension from work and work remains. Then that work will be more efficient than otherwise. Noisy, fussy work is not efficient work. Calm, silent work is the most efficient work.
Thank you.
Yes.
If you're doing work in a threatening environment where it's harmful to your health, say like working in a factory, like so many people do in the West, and it's not helping you to grow spiritually, and if you change your attitude but still affecting you physically, how do you control that?
I was under the impression that modern industry takes care of the physical health of the workers concerned. Mentally only, the repetitive work may not be very satisfactory, but I think they take care of it, except probably dealing with dangerous material or working in a coal fields below. There are so many difficulties are there, but even then, so many careful attention is given to the health of the individual concerned. But there are certain things which you cannot change. You are in a world, it has its phase, so we have to take what they are and then make the best out of it. You cannot ideally create a new world situation. We are in the industrial world. We have to live in it, then have this philosophy. That's why, as they say, spiritual teachers, if there is so much of what you call thorns on the road, you can't remove all the thorns that are there, you put on a pair of shoes. That's the best way to get out of this difficulty. If you can remove all the thorns, well and good, but we know it's not possible. Cold and heat, summer and winter, they come and go. We put on extra dress for winter, light dress for summer. That's how we control the situation. We can't change the climate and weather that is outside. So this way, you have to change the whole attitude to work. That's the stress in the Gita. The attitude to work. Any work can be drudgery when you take away the poetry out of work. That's what we have done today. Poetry and everything out of work we have ourselves taken away. separating pleasure from work. Pleasure is sought outside work, so work is drudgery. Even carrying a child is drudgery today. That is the greatest misfortune. All values have been eroded from life and work. Their attitude control becomes very important. A new philosophical attitude to work is needed. Yes.
I too work in bureaucracy, and I'm wondering what you think my attitude would be towards people who are manipulative and egotistical, where the environment is reasonably hostile. How do you make one see that environment?
Only two courses are open to us: quit and withdraw, or adjust with a stronger philosophy to face that situation. Quitting we have tried. In the hippie movement, we quitted society, but we got into a mess as a result of that. As I often say, it is easy to drop out, but it is difficult to drop in. We don't know where to drop in. There is no other world in which you can drop, except becoming an ascetic in some forest. That's not given to all. So here is an imperfect world. We have to make the best of it. The world is imperfect. The first sentence in Vedanta, the world is imperfect. Even all the care that you take to make it perfect, it will be still imperfect. So you read in the Gita one slogan: every action contains an element of imperfection, element of evil. You cannot avoid it. Just like fire, there will be always a touch of smoke where there is fire. You can't escape it. If so, you just forget or ignore that little element, do the best you can, utilize this work situation for your spiritual development. And that I think it is perfectly correct. Any work situation can help us in our spiritual development, and in the Mahabharata, of which the Gita is an important part, contains stories of how an ascetic had to learn spiritual lessons from a simple housewife, and later on from a butcher selling meat in the shop. He was a great philosopher. Though he is a butcher selling meat, he treated his work from that point of view, developed spirituality through it, and he became a teacher to an ascetic who was proud of his asceticism. That story is there in the Mahabharata. It is only to tell that spiritual life is not dependent upon this situation, that situation. We can convert all situations for spiritual development. That's the idea. God is our own inner nature. We are not to borrow God from somebody else. We have to unfold it all. That's all. Can you make what situation unfold the divinity? That's the only question. Unfolding is the word. Yes?
In the last chapter of the Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, I'll tell you the secret above all secrets. And he says, dedicate thyself to me, sacrifice thyself to me, and so on.
Yeah.
And to me thou shalt surely come. How would that relate to work?
Yeah, this is an important question. When you work, you base yourself on your own initiative. You are the agent and you initiate work. But in this verse it is said, surrender everything to God, complete resignation. Now these belong to two dimensions of religion or spiritual life. In the beginning, you depend upon yourself. You strengthen yourself. And when that strength is sufficiently developed, then you get a new strength to say no to yourself, to go beyond yourself, to surrender to God. That is where he speaks of this 18th chapter. Renounce all actions. Come unto me, I shall give you rest. Jesus said it, Krishna also said it. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I shall give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, for my yoke is easy, my burden is light, for I am meek and worthy of heart. Here is the Bible. Here the 18th chapter, after finishing all the previous chapters, where he always said, depend upon yourself, be strong, be manly. That's a teaching given earlier. Now comes a last note in the music of the Gita. What is that? Having achieved all the strength of individuality and personality, now develop a superior strength to renounce this individuality. Surrender completely to God and nothing else. That needs a greater strength. That strength is you get when you fulfill the lower levels of strength. There Krishna says, I'll tell you profound truth I am telling you, that I am in the heart of all beings, pronounce everything in me, I am there to look after you, you need not worry. That's called complete surrender. A surrender which is complete victory. It's only in this instant surrender becomes victory. Because you surrender to your own higher being, the infinite hidden in the heart of all. That surrender is true victory. No surrender is victory. But this surrender is victory. Because you are surrendering to the highest and best in man, the divine hidden in all. That's why Krishna says this is the profoundest mystery. Why he didn't teach it earlier? Because we have not developed our muscles of mind and body. If I surrender in the beginning, I will never develop these muscles of mind and body. So he said, first develop muscles of mind and body. Just like as you do with your newborn baby. The baby is dependent upon the mother in the womb. It comes out in birth. Then the mother wants the child slowly to learn to stand on its own feet. Mother says, no, surrender everything to me. The child will never grow. Isn't it? You grow well. That's the correct development for the child. Depend upon yourself. I can handle you all the time, but you will never grow. So in the first stage of spiritual life, you are asked to depend upon yourself, strengthen yourself. That is the second chapter, 11th chapter. Krishna always said this, but the greatest note in the music coming in the end. After having got all the strength, now a superior strength you develop. So surrender everything and say, not I, but thou. That's a beautiful idea. But it is a superior strength. To achieve money is strength. To renounce money is greater strength, isn't it? To achieve personality is great strength. To renounce personality, you need greater strength. That's a beautiful idea. Our Indian to go expresses it in a series of lines in his book Gitanjali, for which he was won Nobel Prize. There he says, give me the strength never to disown the poor or bend my knees before insolent might. Give me the strength to make my love fruitful in service. A series of such lines. Then comes the last line. And give me the strength to surrender my strength to thy will with love. That is a superior strength. That will come when you fulfill these earlier developments in the inner strength that you develop. That's why self-surrender is the last note of religion. Manliness, strength is the first note. So I'm putting it in a more effective language. In India, because of not understanding the truth of these ideas, people were taught surrender everything God. From childhood, people start surrendering. They didn't develop anything in themselves. Only surrendering started. Then Vivekananda came. Then he made a remark when a young man told him, Swamiji, I want to renounce everything. And he looked at him. What have you to renounce? Neither a strong body, nor a clear mind, nor money in the pocket. What have you to renounce? I have something to renounce. So when you say I surrender to God, have something to surrender. That's a beautiful idea. That's a beautiful idea. Otherwise God will say, this fellow will be a burden to me. There is a little book there dealing with this very subject from both sides. Divine Grace. That's my lecture in Perth. About 3 years ago, it was edited, expanded, a nice little book, Divine Grace. This subject is fully dealt with here, with reference to our day-to-day life of children, how to teach children this profound teaching. Then industry, executives. What's the meaning of surrender to God for an executive? After all, he has to do work. How can he surrender to God and get things done? I have referred to some of the beautiful Chinese philosophical ideas in Taoism, where you do plenty of work and yet you are not there. A certain detachment you get, work, and yet you are not working. An industrial executive must have that attitude. This is taken from Taoist philosophy. Beautiful ideas are there. Sagely within, kingly without. That's the language our Taoist philosophy uses. Sagely within, with a spiritual touch within, kingly without. Holding great power, discharging responsibility. What a beautiful combination. Same thing you get in the Gita in the 4th chapter. Rajarshi. Raja and the Rishi in one. Raja means a kingly sovereign person. Rishi means a spiritual person. Can you combine these two? Yes, you can. Combine sageship plus kingship. That's the language. So in that book, this subject is discussed. Dealing with children, how to educate them. Stand on their own feet. Then slowly ask them to renounce that ego. Then only they can deal with other children in a friendly way. Too much of I. If a child has, he becomes a nuisance to other children. He must be able to go beyond this little I. That is a training for children, rising higher and higher. It is all about dealing with human education, to unfold the hidden possibilities, to make children realize the inherent strength that is within. That is all the science of religion, science of education. Both are the same. Science of religion is only continual science of education. Beyond this schooling, institutional education, when you go, you get science of religion. That's the concept of religion in the Vedanta.
So really, in a sense, there's nothing for you to do. You might appear to be flat out on the outside, but really you're doing nothing on the inside.
There is perfect calmness within, with tremendous energy outside. This is also Taoist attitude. By not doing, the Taoist achieves everything. There's a language in Taoist philosophy. By not doing, he achieves everything. There's a very contradictory statement, but in human life at the deeper level, this is what comes. You are doing nothing, yet you are doing everything. The other man is doing so much, but he is really doing nothing because of fuss. Making fuss is no way of doing it. Silence is the word, silence. The whole mind and spontaneity. It's a beautiful new idea. Spontaneity. Beyond the logical level, you get spontaneity. At the logical level, there is contradiction. All the time contradiction. In logic, you cannot do logic without contradiction. Either if A is true, non-A is necessarily false. That's called logical theory of contradiction. But in life, there is no contradiction. We are able to go beyond these contradictions in actual life. That way, when you spiritually grow, you develop this new capacity. Tremendous work, and yet no excitement. All calm and quiet. So beautiful idea. If man can achieve it, it's a wonderful achievement. No, you don't go to heaven somewhere else. You can bring it here. All the yogas are blended together into one overall yoga in the Gita. That's why Gita teaching is yoga, of which Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga are departments only. An integral yoga, that's a language men like Aurobindo uses. Integral yoga. You see that? All that is essential in each of these yogas integrated into an overall yoga. Be a yogi, Krishna will say to every one of us. Be a yogi. Not merely karma yogi or jnana yogi, bhakti yogi, but a yogi. So I said in the beginning, as the river flows, new tributaries come. So bhakti comes later, jnana comes later, all these things come there. But the beginning itself is how to conduct this little life of work with a view to achieving spiritual growth and development. Begin in that line, then add bhakti, jnana, everything into it. Then it becomes a rich message of human development. And for all people, it is not meant for any group or section, whether you are atheist, agnostic, it doesn't matter. Everyone can become better and better by adopting this philosophy. There is no prior advanced belief necessary here.